So what do you remember from our previous session? What did we discuss and what is it that we need to start now? Yes, kids, do you remember anything I teach you?
Ma'am, the last thing we did was the reflex actions.
Reflex action, right? So we went over the topic
Ma'am,
control and coordination. We saw our brain. We saw that, okay, you are going to have these different parts,
excuse me, ma'am.
right? And then we also discussed that the brain is going to have this very tiny part of it. Okay, it is going to have this most fundamental and structurally small part of it, which is going to be called as your neuron. Okay, we also went over and we drew the structure of neuron. Once we went ahead, yes, Aditya.
Ma'am, can you repeat the reflex again, that part?
Yes, I will go over that part. Okay, so we basically did one particular thing where we went over and we discussed that, okay, if I have this particular uh structure of my brain, okay, where I'm going to have this tubular structure and all those tubes are going to be made up of these neurons. Okay, we also went over and we discussed what each neuron is going to look like. Okay, now once we understood that, okay, once we understood what each neuron is going to look like, we saw that these neurons were going to function together by joining from one end to the other end, right? So you are going to have these different ends of the neurons which were going to come and associate with each other. And then what these neurons and the associated neurons were going to do is they were basically going to take in that information. Okay, like for example, I touch here. Oh, that was fast. Okay, if I touch here like this, then the impulse is converted from the electrical form to the chemical form while it comes to the end of one neuron, enters into the second neuron, and then again converts into my chemical से लेके electrical से लेके chemical से electrical से chemical. The same process keeps on repeating over and over and over again till it reaches my brain, where in the brain again that information has been gathered, it gets processed, and the same response goes back to the effector organ, one which is the receptor which receives, and then there is something called as the effector organ where the effect of this particular action has been noticed. Okay, when this does not happen in association with your brain, okay, sometimes certain actions require you to function quickly, okay, more faster and more quicker than what your actions would be if you thought about them, right? For example, if I'm sitting over here, I have to think what I have to speak. I cannot just randomly start blabbering, right? It has to be thought out process. But if there's a bullet coming at me, I'm not going to think, oh my god, the bullet is coming at me with, like, let's say the speed of 70 meters per second, and I am sitting at this particular distance, so maybe if I move 2 centimeters I might dodge the bullet. That's not what I do, right? I just dodge myself and hope for the best that it does not come and hit me. Such actions where thought process is not involved, where you just take an action based on what stimuli you're receiving from your surroundings, such actions are called as reflex actions. And these actions have been carried out without the active involvement of your other parts of the brain. Okay, these actions are carried out by the receptor organ receiving a certain kind of stimulus, going to your spinal cord, and the spinal cord sends in the like a message back to your organs telling them what is to be done. When things like this are happening, they are called to be participants of your reflex arc. Okay, and this reflex arc is going to allow you to carry out the reflex actions. Okay, now once you have understood this part, today what we need to do is we need to go over our reflex actions. Okay, we need to understand how reflex actions are going to be a part of our life. Okay, and once we have understood that, we need to draw something which is called as a reflex arc. Okay, now reflex arc is something where you are going to have the involvement of your arm, or let's say leg, or any part of your body. Along with that, you are going to have your spinal cord, which is going to be a participant. Okay, so I'm just going to draw here something. Just try to follow with what I do. Okay, so let's say right now, I hope all of you are able to see my screen. Is my screen visible to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, great. Okay, so let's say I have something that looks like this. Okay, this is what, this is nothing but the internal part of my spinal cord. Okay, along with that, I have this bony structure here. Okay, so this is something that my spinal cord basically looks like. Okay, now to the spinal cord, what I'm gonna have certain neurons that are going to be associated like this. Now where are these neurons coming from? They're coming from my brain. Okay, so these are the nerves that are going to be coming from my brain. Okay, one of this is supposed to take the messages from the body to the brain, and one of them is supposed to take the messages in the other way around. Okay, so let's say I have something like this here. Let's say I have a patch of skin. Okay, let's say this is the patch of skin on your face. Fine. Now from here, if there is some kind of message that has been received, okay, let's say for example, somebody poked you with a needle. If that happens, you are going to react very, very quickly. And here, what is going to happen is you are going to have this particular part, okay, this particular region where you're going to have something which is called as the receptor neuron. Okay, so we are going to label this particular guy as your receptor neuron. Okay, now what this receptor neuron is doing, this is going to take the information that you've been hurt, or there's something hot, or something has happened to you, to your spinal cord. Okay, now once this message has been relayed, okay, I'm gonna write the word over here. Once this message has been relayed, what does it mean by the message being relayed? It means that the message has been transferred from one particular organ to the other, and there is movement of this message from one form to the other. Okay, once this message has been relayed over here, because we know that there is not ample amount of time for you to react for these things. Okay, what is gonna happen? You are gonna have your spinal cord, which is a part of your central nervous system here. Okay, this central nervous system part, which is your spinal cord, is going to come into action. Okay, and you are going to have these neurons over here now, which are also called as your relay neurons. Okay, what these relay neurons are going to do, they are going to take in your actions into accordance. Okay, and these motor neurons, okay, the motor neurons are the neurons that are associated with some kind of movement. Okay, so you have these motor neurons that are going to come into picture, and then these motor neurons are going to help you to move your organ from one side to the other, for or to move from this particular spot where it might be really hot or it might be dangerous for you, to make that movement, to move quickly so that you are no longer hurt. Okay, this entire action where you have your receptor and effector organ. Okay, so let's say the effect is over here. So the receptor and effector loop, which is completed by having the motor neurons, the relay neurons, and the receptor neurons together with the spinal cord in the middle, is called as your reflex arc. Okay, so if we are going to remember this much more easily, okay, I would say there is a receptor organ. Okay, then there are receptor neurons, then there's the spinal cord, then there are motor neurons and effector organ, and they all sit together like this, making an arc shape. Can you see the arc shape of my hand? This is exactly why this particular assembly is called as your reflex arc. Did you understand? Is there anyone who did not understand what I just spoke? Okay, is there anyone who understood what I spoke?
Yes, ma'am, I understood.
You understood what I spoke? Are you sure? If this comes in the exam, will
Yes,
you be able
ma'am.
to write it without copying and without any external help? Will you guys do it?
Yes, ma'am.
Are we confident, or are we just saying that because a question is asked?
No, ma'am.
Confident? Okay, I like that. Okay,
Yes,
so now
ma'am.
the next part that we need to discuss is about your brain and the different parts of your brain and how they are going to be important. Remember the last class I told you to draw the structure of the brain so that we can discuss about it in detail. That is exactly what we are going to do right now. Okay, so when you talk about your reflex arc, okay, we spoke that all of these actions were basically being carried out because you had these different you had these different neurons which were coming into action, and they were doing certain things for your body. Okay, but when you talk about your brain is going to be that last authority, last deciding authority for your body, which is going to determine what kind of actions you want to undertake, whether you want to run, you want to talk, you want to answer in the class, you don't want to answer in class. Anything and everything that you go on to decide is actually going to be decided by your brain. Okay, now, here are some parts of the brain that have already been labeled for you. You can see that depending on where these particular actions are taking place, your brain has been labeled with certain names, right? For example, you have this frontal part. Frontal part, why? Because it is in the front part of your brain. Here, this is the frontal part, okay? And right here, now this might sound a little gruesome, but if you take a drill and you drill here, okay, like drrr, if you take a drill and you put it here, if you go one index finger inside, if you go inside this much in your brain, you will reach a region which is responsible for you to speak. Okay, where is that region? This one. What is the region called? Broca's chamber, okay, or Broca's center. This is the part of your brain responsible for you to talk. Right now I am activating this part of my brain, which is why I am able to speak, right? Is this making sense? You are able to listen and understand what I am talking about because of this part of your brain here somewhere. Okay, so this region of your brain is responsible for sensing. It allows you to sense different things while they are happening around you. Okay, now all of these are the different regions, and depending on what they do, they have been given names. If you look inside your textbook, okay, then you would see that in your textbook there are some other names which are also given to you. So we are going to just take both the diagrams together. We are going to make an overlay, and in your diagram, in your notebook, which I hope you all drew because I told you to do so. Okay, if you have drawn that, then you are going to use the diagram which you have drawn and the diagram that I am labeling here on your screen, and you're going to complete this, and we are going to write down what each of those parts is going to do. Okay, now generally looking at your brain, you're going to see that your brain is going to be divided into two major parts. Okay, one which is called as cerebrum and the other one which is called as cerebellum. Okay, so I'm going to write over here cerebrum. Okay, so we have something by the name of cerebrum, which is the bigger cavity of your brain. Okay, so if I do this, I'll add a new layer. Okay, yeah. So if I take this particular part, okay, the part that I'm putting the lightest blue color, okay, like this part is going to be your cerebrum. Okay, remember that the word brum rhymes with drum. So the bigger part, the drum part of your brain, which is on the top, is called as cerebrum. And then what you have at the bottom here like this, okay, this is the region that is called as cerebellum. Okay, am I making sense? This part is going to be your cerebellum. So you have something by the name of cerebrum and you have something by the name of cerebellum. Okay, along with this, if you are going to notice certain things, okay, so you might say that outside this, okay, you're going to have a bony cavity like this. Okay, and this bony cavity is basically here to protect your brain from the injuries that might be caused because you fall down or some many things because of which you might get injured. Okay, so right on top of this cranium you're going to have layers and layers of skin like this. Okay, so this part of the skull is called as cranium. What is this part called as? Cranium. Am I writing the spelling right? No, I'm not, right? Cranium. Okay, this is the skull. It is bony. Okay, is this making sense? Are you understanding where your brain is kept? Is there anyone who has a doubt as to where the brain is located? No, right? Everyone knows where it is located.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, took you long enough, but all right. Okay, now while this all is, kept inside this bony cavity, there is a upper region which we called as cerebrum. There is a bottom region here which we also called as chota mendu, okay, or chota bheja, or like chota dimag. That is your cerebellum. Okay, and here in the middle, okay, this particular region, this way, is going to be your midbrain. What are we going to call this region? You're going to call it, did it color? It did not color whatsoever. Okay, like this. Okay, so this is going to be called as your midbrain. Making sense? Everyone following till here? Along with this, okay, here somewhere you are going to have another structure which is going to be of our major importance. Okay, this region is called as your glandular region. Okay, the glandular region has two important glands over here, one which is called as hypothalamus, the other one which is called as pituitary. Okay, so I'm gonna label these two here. Hypothalamus, pituitary. Okay, making sense? Along with this, now you see this particular region from here till the bottom. Okay, this is going to be called as your hind brain. What are we going to call this? Hind. Hind means piche. So hind brain. Your hind brain is then going to have three parts: pons, medulla, and cerebellum. Okay, so the major part of your cerebellum is going to be here. So we are going to say plus pons plus medulla is going to make up what? It is going to make up your hind brain.
Ma'am,
Okay, yes, darling.
ma'am, for me, your screen has hanged.
The screen is hanged. Is everyone else able to see this?
Yes, ma'am, and it was lagging also.
It was lagging. Everyone else, how is it going? Are you able to see it or not able to see it? Kids, tell me, are you able to see what I'm
Ma'am,
showing
it's
you?
clear.
It is clear? Okay,
Ma'am,
darling.
it is clear.
Yes, can you please try to reconnect back with us? I think that could be the reason why it is lagging. Just try to reconnect, okay? So,
Yes,
yes, so now this bottom part, okay, your hind brain eventually leads into this part which is called as your spinal called. Okay, so these are all the different things that you need to know along with what those parts are going to do for your brain. This is what diagram you already had. This is what you need to draw on top of it. Okay, so you can make two diagrams, you can take a printout of this, put it there. However you want to go, you need to know this part. Now let's look at what are the
Ma'am,
different functions. Yes, darling. Yes, Shreya.
ma'am, can you explain this part as I lost the connection?
Which part? Which? The new
Ma'am,
image
from
that
the
I did
midbrain.
here. Okay. So basically what we did is we discussed that you are going to have your brain by parts divided into two sections, one which is going to be the upper portion, one which is going to be here. The upper portion, which is large, is called as your cerebrum. The one which is here at the back is called as cerebellum. Cerebellum along with your pons. Okay, pons is a small part of your brain, along with pons and medulla, which also happens to be a part of your brain. These three sections together are called as your hindbrain. Hind matlab piche. Okay, then you are going to have two glands in your head or in your brain, which are going to help you with the control and coordination of the chemical type. Okay, chemical control and coordination. So those chemical control coordinating points are called as your hypothalamus and pituitary gland. Okay, both of these are the endocrine glands that are going to control what different hormones are going to be present inside your body. Okay, along with that, this part of your brain, okay, the frontal part is called as the frontal lobe, and it helps you in concentration, planning, and problem solving, and just basically all those important things. So whenever you are in trouble, you scratch over here, because we try to put more amount of blood into your frontal part so that you can concentrate, you can plan better, you can solve the problems better. Okay, whenever you are having some difficulties in the sort of whether you should be doing this, you should not be doing that, if you're thinking अरे यार ये तो बहुत difficult है, मैं तो exam में copy करने वाला हूँ, but if you don't feel like that is the right thing, you might want to scratch here. Okay, and that basically tells you that this is the region of your brain which is responsible for your behavior and your personality. Okay, so whenever you feel that there are certain changes happening with you, or you don't feel comfortable with whatever is happening, you might be scratching here. Okay, that is because our brain tries to put in more and more blood in this particular region so that it can be stimulated and you could better, and you can make better choices. Okay, so the some of those parts are going to be scratched by you or touched by you or referred to by you unconsciously, because your brain knows what those parts do. Okay, so this is something that you need to know. And different parts of your brain are then going to be responsible for different activities. Like for example, you can see here. Okay, so I'm just going to take this. You can see that there are different actions response or different parts of your brain responsible for speech. There is a different part of your brain responsible for motor functions, sensory functions, and just perception of depth and all those things. So all of these things are going to be done by your body. Srishti, are you trying to say something, darling? Your voice is just coming in, but we cannot make out what you're trying to speak. Are you saying something?
No, ma'am, I'm not saying anything.
Okay, because
No,
there's
ma'am.
some sound coming, but I don't know who's trying to say something. Okay, so this is basically what you are going to see. Okay, this is basically what your brain is going to do. You are going to learn this part. Okay, you're going to write it down, and you are going to ask me if there is anything else that you don't know or you did not understand. Okay, so this is basically the function of your brain. Your brain is going to control how you walk, how you talk, how you behave, what you do, when you do, if you're hungry, if you want to pee, if you want to poo, if you're thirsty. All those things are going to be determined by one and only the brain. Okay, this is basically what happens inside your brain. And how does your brain transmit that information from one side to the other? So it basically does that using the process of synapse, right? So we know that this is one end of your neuron. Okay, and let's say this is the other end of the neuron. So you are going to have the impulses. Okay, just give me 1 second. I'm just going to put it down here. Okay, so you are going to have the impulses coming from one part of your body. Okay, let's say they are coming from your brain. Okay, these are the electrical impulses. As soon as the electrical impulses come to the end of your axons, okay, or to your dendrites, whichever side they come first, they get converted into your chemical signals. Okay, and then these chemicals are going to be released out of your, let's say this is a broken vesicle like this. Okay, they are going to be released out here, and then these chemicals are then going to be picked up. So here, and here. Okay, so these chemicals are then going to be picked up by your other neurons. Okay, so let's say this is in this manner. Come on. Okay, so these are the chemicals that are going to be released. These chemicals are then going to be picked up over here, and then they are going to get converted into your electrical impulses again. This process is called as transmission of signals, and this small space that you see here, okay, this space where your signals get converted from one form to the other, this is called as synapse. Okay, what is this gap called as? This gap is called as synapse. And here what is happening is synaptical transmission of your nerve impulse in the form of electrical impulse to chemical impulse to the, then again this chemical impulse gets converted into electrical. So we are going to say E, C, C, and E. Okay, electrical impulse comes here, gets converted to chemical impulse, chemicals are picked up here, and then it gets converted back to your electrical impulse. Okay, this is how nervous tissue causes any kind of action that you might be able to see or perform. Okay, so nervous tissue causes action like this. Okay, am I making sense? Are you following till here? Is there anyone who did not understand what I just spoke? Is there anyone who understood what I spoke?
Yes, ma'am, I understood.
You
Yes,
understood?
ma'am, I understand.
Okay. Now, if this is what happens inside our body, okay, assuming what I speak is the truth, then you should know that these are not the only kinds of messages, or these are not the only kinds of informations and packets that are being sent from your body to another part. Okay, there is another type of control and coordination which does not include your electrical signal converting into chemical, and then chemical again converting into electrical. Okay, this is what happens inside your brain, but this is not something that happens inside your entire body. Okay, this is true for your brain only, which means that there are going to be other ways in which there are informations and parts of informations, or maybe just entire processes coordinated without even having any impulse generated from one side to the other. It is quite possible that your brain sends in the signals to other parts of your body without ever generating a nerve impulse. And that is essentially done by taking help of these little guys. Okay, so I'm going to stop my sharing from here, and we are going to go to our models. Just give me 1 second. Is that all the people I have? I think it is.
10 to the power.
Sorry? Did you say something, dear?
No, ma'am. Sorry.
Okay, just give me 1 second. I'm just gonna share my screen to show you this other thing. Yes, here it is. Okay, I'm just gonna start with my screen sharing, and here you. Why has my screen sharing stopped? Just give me a second, okay? There seems to be something